States and Minorities Appendices by Babasaheb Ambedkar. Appendix 1 Explanatory Notes. Article 2, Section 4, Part 3, Clause 1. No country which has the problem of communal majority and communal minority is without some kind of an arrangement whereby they agree to share political power. South Africa has such an understanding, so has Canada. The arrangement for sharing political power between the English and the French in Canada is carried to the Minutes Office. In referring to this fact, Mr. Porritt, in his book on the evolution of the Dominion of Canada, says conditions at Ottawa, but partly due to race and language and partly to long prevailing ideas as to the distribution of all government patronage, have militated against the Westminster precedent of continuing a member in the chair for 2 or 3 parliaments, regardless of the fortunes of political parties at general elections. There is a new speaker at Ottawa for each new House of Commons, and it has been a custom that when political party continues in power for 2 or 3 parliaments, if the speaker in one parliament is of British extraction, the next one shall be a French Canadian. It is a rule also that the officers of Speaker and of Deputy Speaker can at no time be held by men of the same race. If the Speaker is a French Canadian, the Deputy Speaker, who is also chairman of committees, must be English speaking. For the rule of the House is that the members elected to serve as Deputy Speaker shall be required to possess the full and practical knowledge of the language which is not that of the Speaker for the time being. The clerkship and the assistant clerkships of the House and the offices of Sergeant at Arms and Deputy Sergeant at Arms, all appointive as distinct from elective officers, are by usage also similarly divided between the two races. Nearly all the officers and offices, important and unimportant, connected with Parliament, with the Senate, as well as with the House, are distributed in accordance with these rules or usages. A roll call of the staffs of the two houses, including even the boys in knickerbockers who act as pagers, would contain the names of almost as many French Canadians as Canadians of British ancestry. The rules and usages by virtue of which the distribution of officers is made are older than the Confederation. They date back to the early years of the United Provinces, when Quebec and Ontario elected exactly the same number of members to the legislature, and when these were the only provinces in the Union. Quebec today elects only 65 of the 234 members of the House of Commons. Its population is not one-fourth of the population of the Dominion. Its contribution to Dominion revenues does not exceed one-sixth. But an equal division of the officers of the House of Commons is regarded by Quebec as necessary to the preservation of its rights and privileges, and so long as each political party, when it is in power, is dependent on support from French Canada, it will be nearly as difficult to ignore the claim of Quebec to these parliamentary honours and offices as it would be to repeal the clause in the British North America Act that safeguards the separate school system. Unfortunately for the minorities in India, Indian nationalism has developed a new doctrine which may be called the divine right of the majority to rule the minorities according to the wishes of the majority. Any claim for the sharing of power by the minority is called communalism, while the monopolizing of the whole power by the majority is called nationalism. Guided by such a political philosophy, the majority is not prepared to allow the minorities to share political power, nor is it willing to respect any convention made in that behalf, as is evident from their repudiation of the obligation to include representatives of the minorities in the cabinet contained in the Instrument of Instructions issued to the governors in the Government of India Act of 1935. Under these circumstances, there is no way left but to have the rights of the scheduled castes embodied in the Constitution itself. Clause 2. This is not a new demand. It replaces Clause 6 of the Pune Pact, which provides that the system of representation for the scheduled castes by reserved seats shall continue until determined by mutual consent between the communities concerned in the settlement. Since there is no safe method of ascertaining the will of the scheduled castes as to how to amend and alter the safeguards provided for them, it is necessary to formulate a plan which will take the part of Clause 6 of the Pact. Provisions having similar objectives to those contained in the proposals exist in the Constitution of Australia, America, and South Africa. In dealing with a matter of this sort, two considerations have to be borne in mind. One is that it is not desirable to rule out the possibility of a change in the safeguards being made in the future by the parties concerned. On the other hand, it is by no means desirable to incessant struggle over their revision. If the new union and state legislatures are to address themselves successfully to their responsibilities set out in the preamble, it is desirable that they should not be distracted by the acute contentions between religions and classes, which questions of change in the safeguards are bound to rise. Hence, a period of 25 years has been laid down before any change could be considered. The end.